keessanii sagalee maayikii keessan mute nu godha. Ani maqaan kiyya Tashaalan jedhama.
Holland Tashaal daqiiqaa tokko naa. Tufufuu dandeessan.
Hayyee warri har'a sagantaa kanarratti argamtan baga nagaan dhuftanii waamicha keenya kabajanii argamuu keessaniif kabajaa guddaa isiniif qabna, galatoomaa jenna. Ani maqaan kiyya Tashaala jedhama. Kanan as jiruuf sagantaadhuma kan isin beeksisuu fi namoota sagantaa irratti hirmaatanii sagantaan har'aa kun Oromia Human Rights Group Conference Group kan jedhamuun qophaa'eera. Konferensii guyyaa lamaaf turu. Har'a gaafa 24 gaafa 25 jechaan bor kan itti fufu ta'a. Har'a keessummaa garii qabna. Borus keessummaan biroo ni jiraatu jechuudha. Kaayyoonsaa akkuma hundi keessan quba qabdanii yookiin immoo hedduun keessan quba qabdan dhimma Oromiyaa irratti kan gabaasan waa'ee dhimma mirga namaa irratti dhaabota hedduutu jira. Dhaabota mirga namoomaaf falman hedduutu jira. Kanneen keessaa OHRG yookiin immoo Oromia Support Group akkasumas immoo OMRO akkasumas Jarman kan jiraatuu fi mirga namaa dhala namaaf keessattuu Oromiyaa keessatti raawwatamu kana hordofee kan gabaasaa ture. Fi Human Rights League of Africa kan jedhamu duratti biyya keessatti hundaa'ee achi keessaa biyya keessaa bahee biyya alaatti namoonni sana keessatti hojjetanillee dararaa adda addaa keessa darbanii har'allee waa'ee Human Rights yookiin mirga namaa irratti kanneen gabaasanidha. Kun sadee walitti dhufaniitti mataa tolfatanii waa'ee mirga namaa irratti attamitti gabaasuu dandeenya isa jedhu hojjetu. Hojii kana kan hojjetan Oromia Global Forum waliin ta'uudhaan san jalatti gurmaa'uudhaanidha kan hojjetanii waa'ee mirga namoomaa irratti extensively hojjechuuf deemu, bal'inaan hojjechuuf deemne jechuudha gara fuulduraatti. Bu'uura kanaan sagantaa dhaabonni kun sadan walitti dhufanii tolfatan haala addaatiin hojjechuuf waloo hojii hojjetamu jechuudha. Gareetti hojii hojjechuuf sagantaa tolfatanii sana ibsuuf asitti argamu har'a. Kanuma ilaalchisee qophii jiru gabaabseen hima. Garuu gara sana toon deemiin dhaamsa tokko nagaheera. Sanan sin ibsuu fedha. Kunis maalii Oromiyaa keessatti ammaan kana gidiraa adda addaatu jira. Namoonni guyyaa guyyaatti ajjeefamu. Bultuma lamaan darban kana keessatti ijoolleen 5 Naqamteetti naannoo Naqamteetti ajjeefamanii jiran. Oromiyaa keessatti ajjeechaan jiru kana qofaadha jechuu miti. Garuu inni kun baay'ee horrifying yookiin immoo baay'ee rifachiisaa waan ta'eef mee kana wajjiniin wal qabsiifne warra kaan bakka godina adda addaatti Oromiyaa keessa baharraa hanga lixaatti, kaabarraa hamma kibbaatti, giddu galeessa bakka hundatti, Boorana, Gujii, Arsii, Baalee, Shawaa, Ilubbaabor, Walloo otoo nafiin, Jimma otoo nafiin bakka hundatti ajjeechaa jiru kana Shawaa bakka hundaa irratti ajjeechaa fi gudiraa uummata Oromoo irra jiru namni 100,000 lakkaa'amutu mana hidhaatti jira guuramee jira jedhama. Namoota kana keessattuu namoota torban kana keessa lubbuun isaanii galaafatame yaadachuuf daqiiqaa tokkoof yaadannoo godhuufii qabna, sanaan jalqabuu qabna waan jedhameef kana bira darbuu waan dandeenyeef daqiiqaa tokkoof akka yaadannuun isinii affeeruu barbaada. Isinitti sa'aatii isaa yeroo daqiiqaa isaa namoonni amma du'an sababa kanaaf kaka'umsa ta'an Isaaq kan jedhamu, Henook kan jedhaman, akkasumas immoo Raagu'eel Haayiluu kan jedhamu, Seefuu Kadir kan jedhamu, Falmataa kan jedhamu itti galee mootummaan ajjeesee reeffa isaaniillee sooshaal miidiyaa kanatti bal'inaan kan deemaa jirudha. Isaaniinis namoota kaanis yaadachuuf daqiiqaa tokkotti akka isaan waan ijaan sin gaafadha. Akka isaan yaadan callisnee jechuudha. Ayyee galatooma sagantaa ibsutti itti fufaa warra afaan Oromoo dhageenyee fi this is meant to remember people who've been brutally killed by the Ethiopian government, military force, security forces over the past 2 days, and it has been circulating over the social media, and the way these people are being killed, the young lads being killed, is quite horrifying. So we were reminded to remember this particular killing and the killing that is taking place all over Oromia, around the west, east, central Oromia, Wollo area, where the Oromos are found and where they are located. A mayhem is taking place and people are being executed every day. So this is meant to remember them. So I just wanted everyone to be on the same page. Following this, I will read the program that is meant to take place today. That is my role, and I will be done and away. So the program is meant to start at 10 o'clock. We started right on time. 10 o'clock, by 10 o'clock, I meant the standard time in the USA, or 15 British time, and 16 Central European time, 17 Filipino time. That's it. So the first program is announcing the program, which I am going to do. Following me at 10:10 to 10:30, Dr. Trevor Truman, the chairman of Oromia Support Group, make some speech. It is about introduction to Oromia Human Rights Group, a new approach to human rights reporting and advocacy. 10:30 to 10:50, Reverend Banti Ujulu Teso is going to speak. Is OMRO chair, is based in Germany, while Trevor is here with me in England. He speaks on the need for a new and revitalized plan for advocacy and campaigning. He will just take a few minutes from 10:30 to 10:50. Following him, Mr. Garoma Bakala Wakasa, Human Rights League Director General, talking about the rethinking for Oromo movement for human rights, new approach to advocacy, rule of law and justice. And then following him, there will be a question and answer time between 11:10 to 11:50. It is for the public to ask questions and for the speakers to answer those questions. At 11:50 and 12, between 11:50 and 12:00, it is announcement of Oromia Human Rights Group conference, which is going to be held tomorrow, to continue tomorrow, and some closing remarks by Trevor and the organizing team. That is what it is. Now I leave the platform I would like to invite Dr. Trevor Truman, the OS chairman, and the platform is yours, Trevor.
There we go. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Welcome everybody, Baganagan Duftan, and thank you to Oromia Global Forum for hosting this preliminary conference of the Oromia Human Rights Group. It's become important to combine the efforts of our three separate organizations because of the current climate politically and human rights wise in Ethiopia, especially the abuses going on against the Oromo and other peoples in the south of Ethiopia. We need to combine because therefore we will be more effective. We need to coordinate our activities for exactly the same reason, so that we're not all doing the same thing and omitting other jobs that need to be done. our main purpose with this platform will be to inform and educate, to inform other Oromo people, to inform politicians, to inform those with business interests in Ethiopia, religious leaders, labor leaders, people within and without of Ethiopia, to educate not only those interested in Oromo affairs and ourselves about Oromo history and culture, but also the people who are deemed responsible for the current abuses against Oromo. We need to educate them and show that there is nothing to fear from Oromo self-determination. And we need to educate all about human rights. What human rights are, what protection we have about against human rights abuses, what we should expect from our security forces and our police, and where to complain if our expectations are not met. Having said that, it is important that we do not weaponize human rights. We don't want human rights to be used as a tool for bashing anyone on group. We just want to get the truth out there. And we should be just as concerned about human rights abuses occurring anywhere in Ethiopia, just as concerned about the present genocide going on against people in Gambela. And even Amhara rights, we should be as concerned for everyone in that empire. Now, Garoma will talk more about Human Rights League in the Horn of Africa and their input to the organization. And the Reverend Banti Ujuli will talk more about Oromo Menschenrechts und Hilfsorganisation, the Oromo Human Rights and Relief Organization based in Germany. And I would like to say a big thank you to Garoma, Banti, Marama, Lensa, Darbesa in Oromia Support Group in Australia, and especially Tashali Abera from the Oromia Support Group in London. These have been the main driving force behind setting up this organization and behind this conference this weekend. Those who don't know me, the Oromia Support Group was set up in 1994. I had experience training Oromo Relief Association health workers amongst refugee populations in Sudan, and we took odd trips over to Wolaga and Benishangul Gumuz areas during the 3-4 years that I was intermittently training health workers. No one was talking about the human rights abuses that were going on in 1992, 1993, and it was therefore in 1994 that, in response to requests from Oromo friends in London, the Oromia Support Group was established. And an important source of our information for the first few years was OHRG newspaper, which was managed by Garoma, who was the editor-in-chief of OHRG back in the early 90s, until he and his gang of brave human rights defenders were detained in 1997, and OHRG was, of course, closed down. At that stage, we were getting information also from a clandestine group called Godado, and we're still receiving information from one of the original human rights defenders, Amansisa Barsisa, in Norway, but now he's based in Norway rather than in Wolaga. This information began to dry up. We were producing reports quite regularly until about the year 2000, and then the information began to dry up as the TPLF strengthened their control over the media in Ethiopia and stepped up with the help of East German and Chinese technology their surveillance of the population. We were able to publish reports from refugees in Kenya in 2010, in Djibouti and Somaliland in 2011, in South Africa in 2012, and Egypt in 2013, although that didn't make a formal OSG report. And following that, of course, the students took the helm and changed history with their protests from 2014 onwards. And it is they who really got the whole publicity machine going and successfully got rid of one bunch of dictators, only to be replaced now by another, of course. But 2018 was a time of joy for me, September, when the OLF were welcomed back in. However, straight away, we started to see government-sponsored violence, which was blamed onto Oromo, with the disturbances in Burayu that followed attacks on a younger Oromo. There were further attacks on Amhara people, and these were put down to a violent group of Oromo youths. I have information now that this was deliberately sponsored by Ethiopian security apparatus. And then in October 2018, we got students being shot dead on the campus of Jimma Agaro University. And then, of course, things really kicked off in December 2018, when we got the killings of Oromo Liberation Army members, just as in 1992, when the encamped troops of the OLF were overrun with American support by the TPLF. And just as in 1992, anybody associated with the OLF began to be a target of the current regime. And then it spread to everybody associated with the Karo movement, and then practically anybody who's had anything to do with any Oromo institution whatsoever. So any Oromo media now are shut down, just as in the 1990s. And then 100,000 plus were detained, and it's probably similar now. And following that, there was legislation to actually legitimize the abuse against the Oromo, which is going to be on the horizon now. My main fear presently is the chaos and dismantling of law and order in Ethiopia. And this is one reason why we have to act with our combined groups. The torture has taken on a different modus operandi. It's more crude, more vicious, and it betrays a lack of discipline and more fury and anger rather than control. And the lack of discipline in the troops, as seen by using civilians as target practice, and the loose shooting of innocent bystanders. These are very worrying signs. And as I say, the total lack of law and order. Judges are being lent on, they're being dismissed from their posts, they're being detained. This is very unusual in Ethiopia to actually detain judges unless they've been caught in the act of committing a crime. We've seen the biggest threat to law and order since the White and Red Terrors of 1977 and 1978. Young men are being taken from police custody, taken out of prison, where you'd think they were at least relatively safe, taken out of prison by soldiers, either taken to military camps where they're tortured to death, or summarily executed and their bodies thrown into the field to be partly eaten by hyenas. Whereas a lot of this is familiar to me. The extent of these abuses going on currently is not familiar to me. This is far worse than anything I have ever seen. And without being alarmist, our aim the Oromia Human Rights Group is to inform people with accurate, factual, regular reporting, and to raise the public profile of human rights abuses in Ethiopia using platforms such as this conference, which will go out on social media. And with regular conferences on such media and with a website which combines all the information from each of our 3 sister organizations, we will be able to provide the raw material and the information you need for campaigning and lobbying in a structured and a directional way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trevor. I think I have to assume the position of chairmanship, at least introducing people. If Reverend Bunty is around, is going to follow. Reverend Bunty, Dr. Bunty.
Yes, yes, I'm here. Hundumti keessan baga nagaan dhuftanii Waaqayyo hunduma keessanii wajjin haa ta'u. Waaqayyo saba keenya yaadatu. Afaan Ingiliffaatiin jalqabeeni waa haasa'ee afaan Oromootiin hundaan bal'isee booddee haasa'uu yaalaa jechuudha akka warri kaan dhaga'aniif. I just said I will speak in 2 languages. I will try to give also a short information in English and then continue shift to Afan Oromo so that the people who are back home may have the opportunity of understanding what we are talking about. Well, I came to Germany 2002, and before I came, as a pastor, I was observing the crisis, human rights crisis in Ethiopia, especially targeting ethnic Oromo. In 2002, school children were being shot on the street and they were killed. And in 2002, I have been observing in my hometown in West Oromia, where a 10-year school child was taken to prison and in police station, and police were beating them, the children, school children of 5th grade, 4th grade, and things like that. I thought what is going on in Ethiopia is known to the world. I assumed as a Protestant pastor who has strong affiliation with European churches, I thought especially the Germans knew what is going on in Ethiopia, especially what is happening against Oromo, because I have been talking with some missionaries, some development workers from Germany who were speaking fluent Oromo and lived in Oromia for more than 15, 20 years. For my surprise, when I came in 2002, I was asked from which country I'm coming. And yes, so people know that I came from Ethiopia. But when I started to speak of Oromo, they said, what is Oromo? We don't know. And we don't know Oromo. And what language is it? What language are your children speaking now? And that has shocked me a lot. In addition to what was going on, that people were killed, imprisoned, and the whole prisons in Ethiopia was full of Oromo political prisoners. As a naive person, I started to talk about Oromo. I was running here and there in Germany and telling them, of course, my work is also to present paper or the development work what Makani Jesus Church is doing in Ethiopia. I had to show the landscape, religion, culture of Ethiopia. Then I was showing them how fertile Oromia is. And people have begun to ask questions. Why? We know Ethiopia, that the country that starves, nothing grows, a drought, and you are telling us some other fake information. We don't think that is Ethiopia. I said, no, I'm Ethiopia. Then we came into dialogue that saying, if Ethiopia is such a fertile land, if there are enough rivers and waters, why is Ethiopia starving? And I told them the root cause of our problem is human rights violation, political problem. Unfortunately, many people did not want to hear what I was saying. And I was advised also only to preach the gospel, not to speak about human rights and about politics. That frustrated me much also. In 2003, a colleague of mine, a pastor of the Ethiopian Evangelical Church, Makani Jesus, Pastor Oker Oleto from Anuak and his group, about 424 Anuaks were massacred and killed by EPRDF government. I thought now the whole German TVs and the whole Europe knows what is going on. And only Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung in Frankfurt wrote a very small article, and everything was kept as if it was normal. And that made me crazy also, because this cannot happen. So it was only Dr. Trevor Truman's organization, this Oromia support group, that was existing and recording what was happening in Ethiopia. The NGOs, church-related organizations who were active in Ethiopia were silent, including my church. And I was so frustrated. Then we began in 2005 to discuss what should we do so that the Europeans and others know what is going on. And we, thanks to the good German friends and some Oromos who are living in Germany, we came together and tried to form human rights organization. Then we had a problem. Others were advising us, you are not allowed to establish a human rights organization in the name of Oromo. I said, why not? So we were fighting. At the end, some agreed, and we have established the Oromo Human Rights Relief Organization in December 2005, when the Kero and Kare movement was just starting in Ambo, for example, and in Addis Ababa University, where Alamayo Garba and Jagama Badane, Gardisa Hepasa, whom I remember, were killed. So we began to report this report. I was distributing to the church organizations and to the international, together with other groups. And they say, do you have evidence for it? If you want evidence, you can go and check. So we continued in 2005 and 2006, when the school children were killed, imprisoned, we had to report to the United Nations 43rd Child Care Council. As a pastor, I got a chance, an opportunity through Lutheran World Federation to enter, and the whole, we tried to advocate and tell to the 43rd Child Care Committee of the United Nations in Geneva. I hoped that the United Nations does now something. They didn't do as I expected. That frustrated me also, frankly speaking. I thought the United Nations is a very strong organization that can command every country. my experience was not the case. Anyway, we had to, 2006, 2007, 2008, we were publishing, producing, and speaking about Oromo. The other challenge which I faced was there were many refugees in Sudan, Kenya, and Somalia, and Djibouti, and Eritrea. And these refugees did not have enough food. They were suffering, and some of them need to be transferred to the third countries. I remember a police by birth from Oromia who was beaten and killed, almost killed and thrown away outside Addis Ababa by the name Girma. Girma was thrown to Kenya and he needed treatment and nobody was treating. So we had to pay about 800 euro from Germany and treat Girma in hospital in Nairobi. Then we have to negotiate with United Nations refugee organization, and I'm glad Girma and his group were taken to USA when I had a contact for some years. That Girma lives in New York, and now there are Mach and Tulama groups with whom we were also having contacts, and they were also persecuted. They were in Kenya. So our challenge was to transfer these refugees from Africa to the third world, the developed world, to Australia, Europe, Canada, and things like that. To some extent, thanks to some German friends who really helped, we were in Geneva, and we were able to transfer some of very few, some family from Hargeisa, Somali to Canada, others to Sweden, and some people were taken from Sudan and transferred. The UNHCR has helped us. We were doing that also, attending and publishing. Then we had Dr. Trevor Truman, who was really doing alone his work. Now he has some people, I think. In 2004, it was frustrating to see Dr. Trevor in Atlanta by OSA conference asking our Oromo people to help Oromia support group and publishing alone and doing that was the history which I observed in 2004, Dr. Trevor, when you were in Atlanta. I was there also. So just to give a testimony, there were and there are human rights organizations in Ethiopia, but these human rights organizations were silent and they didn't want to speak about Oromo. Some of them were established by the Ethiopian government, controlled by the Ethiopian government. Of course, they don't speak about it. So anyway, we had to do that, and two organizations were existing. Then came Human Rights League Horn of Africa, which was already working in Ethiopia but refused. Then Garoma and his group were established in Canada. They began to function, and we became three human rights organizations focused on Oromo. But the other problem is Ethiopia was seen in the eyes of the Western countries, democratic country, and when the refugees come to Germany or to France or Norway or Sweden or America, they don't get recognition, because that was also another challenge when we had to write and defend the refugees whose cases were rejected, and we were successful to some extent. We are still struggling about it. So the Oromo Human Rights and Relief Organization in German language, called Oromo Menschenrechts- und Hilfsorganisation, OMRO e.V., tried to make known the Oromo case also by preparing three big conferences in 2007, where Dr. Trevor Truman and I, we were always together. I'm glad that we are working together also. He was a speaker in Hanover in 2010 and 2015. We had big human rights conferences in Germany. Our aim is to inform the Germans what is going on, and many Germans were attending and listening our stories and the stories of the Oromo people and what was happening. We have also tried our best to attend the European Parliament in 2008, Strasbourg, tried to bring what was going on. I don't know, we were submitting things, but things did not work as I expect to see the result, but I hope it has effect anyway, I believe. So now, when 3 organizations now, or Oromia Support Group, Oromo Human Rights Relief Organization, and Human Rights League Horn of Africa, so we were trying, and then after we could not able to go to Geneva to attend the United Nations, Dr. Trevor gave to Omro, and then we gave to Garoma, and Garoma was registered, and he was keeping on going to the United Nations and representing, and so the Oromo. You see, I'm telling you how the interconnection we had already historically helped us to come to this level. So Garoma has taken the United Nations case and everything. We focused on other things and going to international organization, things like that. So based on this, we had a good experience. And then nowadays, as Oromo Human Rights, the Oromia Global Forum was established in this year, we came to know that about 11 human rights organizations are working already around the world with reporting about Oromo cases. So we said, okay, there are 11 Oromo human rights organizations which are members of Oromia Global Forum.
Try to sum up, Doctor.
Okay. We came together and decided to have 4 organizations. Dr. Trevor, you have forgotten one organization, Advocacy for Oromia, which is led by Obon Abasa Wagjira in Australia. We are 4 now. We all came together and formed an organization called Oromia Human Rights Group. That's our name. What do we want to do? 6 points I have to mention here. 1, we want to establish ad hoc committees in each countries and in Europe and Australia. For example, in Geneva and Brussels and Germany, in London and elsewhere. 2nd, we want to do legal advocacy. We want to make extensive research on human rights issues. 4, we want to continue our lobby work, visiting international governmental and non-governmental organizations. And we want to also continue with seminars and workshops like that to create awareness, political awareness on human rights issues among the international community. And the 6th, what we want to do is we want to write a book about our history of human rights violations and compile and leave it to the next generation, because the Germans are good in compiling things, and unless we do this terrible thing, what is happening, it will be forgotten, and this should not be done. So I don't know. I spoke a lot, Mr. Tashale. How should I speak in Afan Oromo? Then I promised to speak in Afan Oromo. Do you have? Can you allow me 2 or 3 minutes to tell my Oromo people back home?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, of course, I do that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Wanta amma jedhee namoonni Oromoodhaa biyya keessa jeessanis nu dhaggeeffattan rakkoo keessa kan jirtan Waaqayyo isinii wajjin haa ta'u jedha ka lubaatti. Yeroon biyya sanaa dhufee addana dhufee biyya kana keessa ilaale wanta jedhee wanti hundinuu Oromoo beekaa rakkoo Oromoos beeka jedheen ture dubbichi garuu akka kana miti. Baay'eensaa dhugaan Oromoo hojiin Oromoodhaa dhokatee awwaalamee maqaan keenya aadaan keenya eenyummaan keenya rakkinni keenya hundinuu gaazexaan hin baasu namni dubbatu raadiyoon Awurooppaan hin dubbatu televezyiiniin hin haasa'u kun baay'ee na joonjesse ta'uun dhufe. Kanaaf kan ka'e mirga namaatiif falmuun mirga Oromootiif falmuun barbaachisaadha jennee kaane keessumaa Ethiopian Human Rights Commission inni biyya keessa jiru maqaa isaa yoo dhahe gaariidha. Waanuma tokko waa'ee Oromoodhaa hin barreessu ture. Yoo barreessanis tokko lama barreessanis kan irra darbu turanii isa kana dhimma keenya rakkoo saba keenya irra ga'aa jiru beeksisuun akka luba waldaa kiristaanaatti barbaachisaadha ta'uu isaatti amana'anii kanaaf namoota tokko wajjin ijaarsa mirga namaaf gargaarsa Oromoo kan jedhu dhaabnee isaaf hojjechaa turre namoota baqattoota gargaaraa turre baqattoota gaanfa Afrikaa biyyoota garaagaraa jiran tokkoffaa achitti hamma dandeenye waan tokko gargaarreerra kana booddee immoo warra iddoo gara biraatti darbaniifis immoo waraqaa deeggarsaas ta'ee ragaas kenninee hamma danda'amne utubaa turre warri kana hojjennu lakkoofsaan yaraadha horiin nu qabnus yaraadha nammoo mirga namaatiif horii buusaa yeroo jedhanii gaarumaan eegaa dubbachuu danda'a buusuun barbaadu warri sooressi biyya kanaas yeroon dhaqee kadhadhu mirga namaatiif kennaa siilaan hunaan jedhu yoon immoo hin beela'anii warra beela'anii jedhe immoo kennuu barbaadu inni kunis naan galle anyway kanaaf hamma danda'ame carraaqnee hojjechaa turre garuu yeroo duraa mirga namaatiif kan falman dhimma Oromoo irratti sadii duwwaa turre kan Dr. Trevor fa'aa kan obbo Gaarumaa fa'ii fi kan keenya amma immoo kan obbo Dhaabasaa fa'aa Advocacy for Oromiyaatti dabalannee biyya Ameerikaa keessa immoo baay'een jiru isaanis immoo gara nama dhaabbaa 7 hin ta'u mirga Oromoo irratti amma nuyi kan gochaa jirru kophaa hojjechuun humna yaraa qabnu hin dandeenyu miidhaan biyya Oromiyaa keessatti bal'aaf guddaaf gadi fagoodha. Isa kana keessa ba'uudhaa fi qindoominaan hojjechuun barbaachisaa ta'uu isaa sababii itti amanneef agoobara tokko dhaabbachuun ijaarsi mirga namaa arfan kan walii wajjin muuxannoo qabnu walii wajjin dhaabbannee isatu har'a jalqabnee karaa miidiyaadhaas nu dhageeffachuuf jirtu dhimma aadaa dhimma mirga Oromoodhaa gara fuulduraatti labsuuf jennaa. Rakkoo Oromoodhaa hamma nu danda'ame hamma Waaqayyo nu gargaare afaan taanee dubbachuu ilaalla. Waaqayyo immoo inni hundumaa danda'u immoo rakkina kana keessaa isin baasan jedha yaa saba Oromoo wal bira dhaabbachuu qabna. Warri jaarmiyooleen mirga namaa biyya Ameerikaa keessa jirtan immoo waamicha isinii godhaa gara dhumaarratti isinis walitti dhuftanii humna qabnuuf qabeenyaa qabnu walitti qindeessinee waan tokkicha hojjennaa waan ta'eefi saba keenyaa fi hojii qooddannee walii wajjin hojjechuun bu'aa isaatu caalaa qabaa miidhaan qabu kanaaf walitti kottaa jennaa nu irraa jalqabnee tokko taanee afaan tokkoon inni tokko hojjetu inni tokko hojjetaa hojiis gargar hirmaannaa qabeenyaas ta'u gargar hirmaannaa walumaa wajjin hojjennaa namni mana tokko ijaaru citaa waliin saamu jedha Oromoon kanaafitu kana dhaabbannee bor konfiraansiin keenya itti fufaa falmiin keenyas itti fufaa Waaqayyo inni hundumaa danda'u immoo daanyaa ta'ee nuuf faraduu xabaqaa ta'ee abukaatoo ta'ee saba keenyaaf falmuun jedha fayyaa ta'a galatooma. Fixee rabboota shaa.
Galatoomi Dr. Ansuudhaan akkasuma sa'aatii irratti darbaa fudhate Dr. Bantiin egaa haasaamsaatti ofnaan inni callisee sa'aatii keenyatti akkasitti goonu obbo Gaarumaa Waaqasaa bara dheeraaf gatii aarsaa guddaa kaffalee namoota badiin adda addaa gahaa ture. Dhiigni isaanii dhangala'ee bakka buuteen isaanii dhabamus garuu riikoordiin isaanii akka dhabamne nama dookumentii godhaa ture. Ofii isaallee miidhamuudhaan rakkoo adda addaa keessa kan darbee har'as kan itti jiru ammaan kanallee Itoophiyaa keessatti dhaabni isaa galee waa'ee mirga namaa hanga danda'ame gabaasuudhaan mootummaan akka karaatti deemu mirga namaa akka inni observe godhu qabsaa'uu keessatti sochii akkanaa gochuu keessatti kan argamudha. Kanaaf obbo Gaaramaan mata duree irratti dubbatu rethinking the Oromo movement for human rights, new approach to advocacy, rule of law and justice jedha. Olaantummaa seeraa akkasumas immoo sochiin mirgaaf godhamu attamitti deemuu qaba irra deebinee ilaalluu qabuun qabnu kan jedhu approachiin adda akkaataan deemsi keenya fooyya'uu qaba jedhutti yaada addaa nu dhiyeessa jedhanii amana. Obbo Gaaramaa waltajjiin kan keeti.
Okay, nara geessu miti dhaga'ama. Dhaga'ama sagaleen koo.
Ni dhaga'ama tu.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate Mr. Tashale for your introduction. And I want to thank the committee who just organized this conference, including myself, it means. So, first of all, just I want to introduce to you a new face here, Professor Mohammed Al-Hashimi. You can see on the screen. He is a new, thank you for coming, Professor Mohammed. Professor Mohammed Al-Hashimi is a human rights professor, and he recently joined the Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa from USA. And I appreciate him, and I valued him because he wrote a letter to the Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa, just showing that he has an interest to involve in this with this organization to help. So he's really just I invited him to for the first, just this is our first conference with him. So continuing, just I want to tell about Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa in short, very short. And if explanation is needed, I will just explain during this question and answer session. So first of all, just I want to introduce about this organization, about our group. Our brothers say that there are 3 organizations, but there are actually not 3 organizations came together to form this coalition, or we can say consortium. The first one is Oromia Human Rights Support Group, UK. The other one is just Human Rights OMRO from Germany, Human Rights League, Advocacy for Oromia, and Oromia Support Group Australia. We are 5, we are not 3, please. So, just this is a small mistake, don't worry. So I want to just really go through fastly about how Human Rights League came up to this stage. So as just Afan Oromotinis Kesandeva, can fit Afan Oromotigala, please give it up. So Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa was just not really created in Canada as new. It has got a fathers and grandfathers, father and grandfather. So as Dr. Truman said, Trevor said, we started human rights in OHRG organization. You know what OHRG is? OHRG was a newspaper which was created in 1993 in Ethiopia, just really to be a voice for the voiceless at that time. So at that time, just I joined OHRG as assistant editor-in-chief. After 2 years, I got a position to lead the company itself, the publishing company. So when I was there in OHRG, just as a leader, really there were horrific human rights violations going on in Oromia, and we were getting every day very human rights violation, just that is atrocity, you can say atrocity reports. So being in OHRG's office in 1996, I just talked to my friends to create a new human rights organization. So we did it. And in 1996, Human Rights League was created. As we started, actually, just after 1 year, everybody was imprisoned. Not only imprisoned, of course, just we were imprisoned for 4 years. We stayed or we were kept for 4 years in prison. So after that, yes, we were released, and we came to, most of us, we came to Canada and relaunched it with a name of Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa. We added simply on Human Rights League Horn of Africa, because we added the Horn of Africa because when I was in Kenya for 6 months, I witnessed, and we witnessed that the Ethiopian regime has got a long arm to pick Oromos and other people from Ethiopia, from Kenya, from Nairobi, from Djibouti, from everywhere. So to fight again with those countries, that is Kenya, Sudan, and Djibouti, we have to add Horn of Africa. So we add Horn of Africa, and they said Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa. We established here in Canada 2007. We started working. Then soon, just after 3 years or 4 years, in 2011, this organization got a real recognition with the United Nations. And we applied for United Nations and accept consultative status at UN, the special consultative status, which enables us to react or just really to work with all UN organizations, subsidiary organizations, and more organizations. So we keep reporting. So now, just with few people, we worked very hard. And again, we want to go back to Ethiopia, just at least around Ethiopia. And in 2013, we opened our branch office in Uganda, because at that time, it's really impossible to try to be in Ethiopia or to create in Ethiopia office. So then in 2009, Human Rights League was just returned to 2019, it was returned to Ethiopia, and now we have an office in Ethiopia. So this is a short history of Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa, just 23 years journey. So United Nations accepted this organization as a member, and now at this time we have got 15 chairs at United Nations seats. We can just really hire somebody in 3 main offices of United Nations, 5 at New York head office, 5 at Geneva, and the other one at Vienna. So 5 seats we have. So we didn't use it actually because of the fund. So in any way, let me go back to my point and my big presentation. Today, just afaan Oromootiin deebi'aa dhiifama godhaa warri kaan wanno gochuu dandeenya. So today I'm going to present, as Tashale said, on especially rethinking the Oromo movement for human rights and advocacy, rule of law, and human rights. Kanafi isa jalqaba irratti yoggaan jechuu barbaadu Oromo Human Rights Group is just, we have to see this one, and let me go to the mission and the vision of this organization, which we created. Just I'm going to read directly. Human Rights or Oromo Human Rights Group channel is established to create a very direct, effective, and easy way of communication between the target audiences of Oromo Human Rights organizations, and encourage, pursue, and enable the audiences to become a vocal supporter and a promoter of the human rights in Oromia. Kuni directly jecha harka walitti dhufne nuti channel fuudha. Channel jechani kan irratti dhimma itti baanu jecha different kinds of the systems. For example, it could be a radio, or it could be a TV, or it could be even YouTube. So using these channels, we are going to just proceed. So the vision is very short: to create a situation whereby human rights violation will never be tolerated, and those responsible for the violation of fundamental rights of citizens are brought to justice. Kanarratti xiyyeeffadhaa jechaadha. Maaliif hamma ammaatti wanti nuti gochaa turre yeroo dheeraaf jechaadha. Hamma ammaatti nuti gochaa turre mootummoota adda addaatti barreessuudha. Mootummoota adda addaatti gabaasuudha. Mootummaa Itoophiyaaf illee gabaasuudha jechaadha. Amma garuu kana jijjiiruu qabna at least jennee waan yaadneefidha jechaadha. Akkamitti jijjiira inni jedhamu tokkoffaani maas miidiyaa adda addaa kanaatti irra caalaa sooshaal miidiyaatti dhimma baanee torbanitti konferensii organaayizii gochuudhaan uummanni akka waa'ee maal akka hojjetaa jirru akka beekaniifidha. Akka beekan qofa otoo hin ta'in aakshinii tokko fudhatanii akka dhaaba kan gargaaranii jecha konsertamii kan. So inni hambiraan maal inni itti aanee maal gochuu barbaanna? Just let me see. Advocacy kan nuti deemsuuf deemnu at high level ta'uu qaba. Kanaan dura kan nuti advocacy deemsaa turre at low level. When I'm saying at high level, we have to use all United Nations systems, United Nations system of advocacy. Let me see. What is advocacy? Advocacy kanaan dura himaan ture ani ammas irra deebi'ee himuuf it is a strategy to influence policy. Policy mootummoonni adda addaa qaban mootummaan Itoophiyaa illee qabu sana policy akka waan taane sana akka isaan jijjiiran irratti dhiibbaa gochuudha jechaadha. So kana jechuun maal jechaadha? Reform the policies. Policyin jiru yoo ta'e kan Itoophiyaa keessa jiru actually policyin Itoophiyaa policy gaariidha. Policy rakkina hin qabnu. Implementation irratti rakkina kan qabnu. Isarratti akka dhimma itti bahanii dhiibbaa irratti gochuudha jechaadha. Inni hambira maa inni using UN system for advocacy. This is very important. That's what we are going to just implement under this organization. That means under Oromia Human Rights Group or Oromia Human Rights Group. So the first one is Human Rights Council. This is a one organ, subsidiary organ in the United Nations, and we have to deal with them periodically every day. Just in yerootti isaan wajjin hojjechuu qabna jechaadha. Human Rights Council jala maaltu jiru? Universal Periodic Review kan jedhu departmentiitu jira. Kun tokkoffaadha. Karaa lammaffaan immoo compliant proceduretu jira. Special reporterotatu jiru yookiin proceduretu jira. Isaa wajjin diilii gochuu qabna jechaadha. Inni lammaffaan maani treaty bodies kan jedhamtu jiru. Treaty bodies kan jedhamani there are human rights instruments in United Nations that all the states already signed and ratified. These treaty bodies or the treaties at United Nations are now 10. There are 10. From 10, Ethiopia signed 7. Treaty bodies were jedhaman kun maalinni mootummoonni adda addaa dhaqanii walii galtee kan mallatteessanii jecha walii. Kana jechuun maal jedhaa mirga namummaa ilaalchisee kan irratti walii galanii mirga namummaa eeguu qabne kan mallatteessanii jechaadha. Isaan amma 10dha. Isaan keessaa Itoophiyaan 7 mallatteessiteetti jechaadha. Isa sana mallatteessisana hojiirra oolchuu qabdi jechaadha. Itoophiyaan 7 mallatteessitee torban kana keessaallee tokko isheettillee dhimma hin baane jechaadha. Treaty bodies kana sirriitti agarsiisuun barbaada. Treaty bodies treaties jedhu kan sirriitti agarsiisuu barbaada. This is the treaties.
Ifama bogaaro mal ifama naa godhi sheerii gochaa jirtu screenii keedha yoo awaa argisiisuu yaalaa jirta ta'e. Irra deebii sheerii godhi.
Okay. Number thank you for just reminding me. Jirama.
Eeyyee jirta.
Okay. So treaty kan jennu warra kanadha jechaadha. Kuni at United Nations level mootummoonni kan mallatteessanidha jechaadha. Kana keessaati treatiin kun yookiin immoo kan mallatteeffaman kun 10dha. Isaan keessaa 7tu mallattaa'eera jechaadha. Sana Itoophiyaan mallatteessite garuu hojiirra hin oolchine jechaadha. Kanaaf at United Nations level kuni maaliif hojiirra akka hin oolle irratti hojjechuu qabnaadha gaaffiin keenya jechaadha. Gaaffiin keenya maalinni kuni irra hojiirra ooluu qabaadha. Gara fuuldura gara duubatti deebi'eeni sistemii irratti hojjechuuf deemnu yookiin immoo maal gochuu akka qabnu tokko sinitti barbaada jechaadha. Treaty bodiesiin keessa sinii deemeera. So akkam goonii tura yeroo baay'ee kan treaty bodies kana yookiin immoo mootummaan UPR sila sinitti agarsiiseera. UPR jechaa maal jechaadha? Universal Periodic Review jechaadha. Universal Periodic Review jechuun mootummoonni kan mallatteessan treaty san mallatteessan sana waggaa 4 kan itti riippoortii godhanidha United Nationitti. Riippoortii godhu. Hojiirra oolchuu isaanii fi hojiirra oolchuu isaanii jechaadha. Yoggaa isaan kana godhanii unimmoo akka NGO akka CSO reportii kan mataa keenyaa dhiyeessinaa jechaadha. Yeroo kana mootummoonni kololtaan kun yookiin United UN Human Rights Council reportii mootummaan dhiyeessee fi reportii nuti dhiyeessine wal cinaa qabeetu gamaa jechaadha. This is what we did already for 8 years now. Isa booda iddootti rakkinni isaa jiru achi keessaatii baasaa jechaadha komitiin sun. For example, in 2014, Ethiopian civil and political rights irratti gamaggamamte qabxiilee 152 itti laatame. 152 itti laatame jechaan recommendation jecha sirrii akkan taane jecha kanarratti hojjechuu qabna amma more. We have to work on this more than just reporting locally. So how to work with the treaty bodies? Treaty bodies wajjin hojjennu yookiin immoo treaty kun hundumsaanii committee qabu. The committee who are just working on the treaty bodies, treaties are called treaty bodies. They are just, for one committee, there are 18 members. So these are working effectively and just it is their work. So we have to contact them and report to them what we have in Ethiopia or in other places, especially in the Horn of Africa. So again, we have to submitting a shadow report. When we are talking shadow report, Universal Declaration of Human Rights ni beektu bakka adda addaatti wanti ta'aa jiru hin majira jechuun treaty adda addaa keessa jechaadha. Isa violate yogaa godhu mootummaan kun yogaa ofiisa periodic review gashatu nuti immoo reportii hambira gashina jechaadha. That is called shadow report because they submit their own and we submit it on the same topic from us as an NGOs. Then as wal jira kamanitu maaltu badaa jira maaltu toraa jira jedhanii iddootti gamaggamanidha jechaadha. So submitting a complaint on allegation kan gochuun danda'ama. Yeroo hundaa isa goonu sanadha jechaadha. That is individual complaint galuu danda'a. Namoonni mirgi isaanii tuqame Oromoo keessatti namni tokko mirgi koo tuqameera yoo jedhe mirga qaba. Supportii gochuu dokumentii gochuuf yookiin immoo apply gochuuf jechaadha United Nations irratti yeroo san supportii goonaa jechaadha. So let me see how it works with a concluding observation of UPR. UPR akkuma isinitti hime UPR Itoophiyaa isaa ta'u biyyoonni adda addaa waggaa afuritti riipoortii galchu isiniin jedheera. Riipoortii sanatti hundaa'ee gamaagamee wannoo baasu jechaadha. Concluding documentii baasu yookiin immoo recommendation laatuufi jechaadha. So let me see just steps in developing advocacy initiative. This is our main, just important point we are just going to see today. Advocacy can at United Nations level, initiative, mal initiative determine your goal and objective. Jalqabarratti kana gochuu qabna. Determine gochuu yookiin maal akka hojjechuuf deemnu kaayyoo keenya just lafa kaawwachuu qabna jechaadha. Broad now, short term, long term, specific, and attainable, realistic. The second one is establish a target audience. Target audience in Kenya, governor can put you them Nuchara. List it on you. Sadafan, develop your message and brainstorm strategy for action. Action it they move kamna. Action to Gamnu can brainstorm go chukamna. Just the stakeholders develop an action plan. Implement an action plan, evaluate your results. Can you go on at high level? One barbane, Okilmo Amnikunaka, concentrate meet, Yokilmo, aka group to Jechubarbade, Bakanga, Tajechara. So advocacy action in short, just to summarize, lobby policy or lawmakers, for example, Abolen adada nijiru, yokin mobion adada nijiru, motumon adada rechalayu aka USFI chara, Ethiopia gargarani, yoga some policy sani developing. We have to advise with them, we have to help them, we have to talk to them. Day-to-day follow-up networking and the building coalitions. Now we already networking some of the charges can afford networking Kenya. It do hunda gauk abaichara. Malifon open letters, urgent appeal letters, petitions, and support. kana hunda gochuu qabnaa jechaadha. Just effectively hojjechuuf now from now maaliif kanaan dura human rights leaguein locally yeroo baay'ee ibsa baafna Itoophiyaatti ergina kana caalaa immoo isiniif disseminate goonaa jechaadha. Isiniif facaafnaa jechaadha. United Nations ni gaa amma garuu kana ta'uun ta'ini baafnee faana buunee day to day at United Nations level at different level simta agarsiiseera ma'awannoo sana faana buunee maal akka ga'e akshinii maal akka fudhatame yoo nurraa gaafatu immoo yoo jiraate anatti guunnee yoo jiraate immoo gaafanne akka itti guunnee faana deemnudha jecha. In general accountability mootummaa sanarratti argamuu qaba kan jedhu jechuudha. Maaliif gara seeraatti deemaa jirra jecha. Kanaaf gara seeraatti deemaa jirra jechaadha. Kanaaf kan nuti barbaadnu in general uummanni kun kana faana bu'ee kana gochuuf immoo waan baay'eetu nurraa hanqataa jira. Irra caalaayyuu finance funding guddaatu nu barbaachisa. Biyya keessaa riseerchiitu hojjetamaa jira. Itoophiyaa keessatti jechaadha. Yeroo ammaa kana biyyatti deemanii waajjirri banaadha. Riseerchii sana hojjechuuf maallaqa yookiin immoo fandii guddaatu barbaadama. Namoonni kana dhagaan yookiin immoo akka Oromootti isaa ta'u akka eenyutti yoo ta'e dhaaba irra caalaa koolishinii dhaabnee jiru kana fandii gochuun dirqama ta'a jechaadha. Of course ni gaafanna. Yoo sun hin jiru ta'e hojiirra ooluu hin danda'u jechaadha. Kanaaf kan koodhumaa jiran fakkaata rule of law and human rights jedhutti ce'uu barbaadan ture. Akkuma agartan asirratti I have got here rule of law and human rights. Human rights fi rule of law saantimni tokko karaa lama qaba. Fuula lama qaba. Waliin deemuudha. Walirraa qonna ta'uu qaba hin danda'anidha. Maaliif yoo human rights hin eegamne rule of law hin eegamu jedha. Kana jechuun maal jechaadha? Itoophiyaa keessatti waan ta'aa jiru amma mootummaan Itoophiyaa maal jechaa jira? Olaantummaa seeraa kabachiisa jedhee mirga namoomaa cabsaa jira jechaadha. Kuni ta'uu hin danda'u. Dura mirgi namaa eegame booda sana erga mirgi namaa dhuguma akka tiriitii sanaatti jechaadha eegame booda yoo mirgi namoonni immoo sana ce'u ta'anii eegsisuun ni danda'ama. So we can say that the definition of human rights rule of law, it is exactly the rule of law is a legal maxim that suggests the predominance of the law of the land over all people. Hunduman seerri constitution Ethiopia keessa jiru amma hundi keessa akka beektanii it has got 106 articles. One of 106 articles keessa kan jiran hundi isaanii around 43 articles are about human rights and democracy. Sana keessa tokko illee eegamu hin jiru jechaadha. Kanaaf isaan maal jechaa jiru amma Itoophiyaa keessatti hojjetamu warra aangoorra jiran akka mirga guddaa qabanii akka waan hundammoo chaarterii waan isaan konstitushinii sanaatii ol akka ta'anitti ilaalaa jiru. Sana otoo hin taane hundumtuu konstitushinii jala taa'ee waan ta'uu qabu hojjechuu qabaa kan jedhudha jechaadha. So nanoo just fixaan jira sa'aatii koo yoo gaaffiin jiraate gaaffiif deebii irratti walitti deebina. Kana qopheesse baay'ee bal'aadha. Gaaffii fi deebiidhaan keessa deemuu dandeenya. Namoonni barbaadan immoo emailii naa gootan I can share with you this just template or presentation. Galatoomi obbo Tashaale.
Galatoomi obbo Gaaruma. I just assumed chairmanship, Dr. Trevor. I would like to invite you and to chair this question and answer session. And when Oromo language is involved, I can step in and help you. Amma gaaffii fi deebii fi carraanii namoonni gaaffii qabdan warra afaan Oromootiin dubbachuu barbaadan afaan Oromootiin dubbachuu dandeessu. Anu hiikuudhaan sin gargaaruu danda'a. Afaan Ingiliffaan koollee baay'ee sharp miti garuu immoo caccabseessota egaa Trevor biraan sinii ga'a jedhee yaada akka inni sinii deebisuu danda'uu fi kanaaf yeroo gaaffii fi deebiiti daqiiqaa naannoo daqiiqaa 40 qabna jechuudha. Kanaaf warri gaaffii qabdan, warri yaada qabdan, warri koomentii qabdan marti dubbachuu dandeessu. Qeesbantii fi Gaaruma na sirreessuu keessaniif galata guddaa qabdu. dhaaba kana keessatti ammatti miseensa taane kan jiru afuri. Tokko Advocacy for Oromia kan jedhamu kan Awustiraaliyaas biyya kaanis miseensonni keessa jiraniif hojii guddaa bal'aa hojjetaa akka jiran yeroo dhiyoo keessatti garuu kan gurmaan garuu gabaasa adda addaa kan dhiyeessaa jiranii fi waa'ee dhimma mirga namaa kan Oromoo ilaallatu irratti baay'ee hojii guddaa hojjetaa jiranii. Isaan Omroo OHRG fi Human Rights League waliin taanetu jira jechuudha. Gara fuulduraatti kana dabalataa deemuu danda'a hojiin keenya gabaabumatti akka isaan ibsanitti tokko mootummaawwan adda addaa wajjiniin ta'anii kan qeesbantiin emphasize godhuu barbaade sanii adda addaa wajjiniin ta'anii attamitti murtii isaanii jijjiirsuu hin danda'ama, attamitti poolisii isaanii imaammata isaanii Itoophiyaa wajjiniin qaban kallattii human rightiitiin mirgi namaa kabajamaa hin kabajamu isa jedhu irratti hundaa'anii attamitti qabsiisuu hin danda'ama, attamitti firoomfachuu hin danda'ama, akkatti isaan hubannaan isaanii cimoo gochuun attamitti danda'ama mootummaan Itoophiyaa mirga namaa kabajaa jedhanii akka isaan ija nutti hin babbaafne akka isaan dhugaa argan gargaarsa godhanii fi hariiroon mootummaa Itoophiyaa wajjin tolfatan mirga namaa kabajamuu irratti akka hundaa'u attamitti tolchina isa jedhu koontinentii hundattuu Awustiraaliyaa irraa eegalee hamma Ameerikaa gara lixaatti deemutti jechuudha. Attamitti tolchina Awurooppaa keessatti istiraakcharii yookiin immoo instituushinii jiran kana keessatti deemnee koree tolchinee uummata wajjin taanee attamitti tolchina isa jedhu. OGF kanarratti mata dureedhaan hojjechuuf jira. Nummoo akka miseensa OGF'tti dirqama addaa qabna. Kanaaf dhaabannee waan ta'eef gargaarsa OGF's hin barbaadna. Mata dureedhaan isaan waliinis hojjenna. Ammallee waan akkana kan nu qindeessee nu wajjiniin dhaabatee nu jajjabeessaaf nu dhaabaa jiru isaanii kana ammallee irra deebi'ee himuun barbaada. Gambiraatiin uummata keenya dammaqsuudha kan Dr. Obbo Gaarumaan ibsuu yaale. Uummata keenya qabsiisuudha. Uummata keenya akkaataa inni sammuunsaa itti yaadu jijjiiru. Akkaataa waa'ee mirga namaa kabajamuu keessatti, mirga isaaf falmuu keessatti conscious ta'ee, structured ta'ee otoo hin komatamin, otoo mirga namaa hin cabsiin jechuudha. Otoo mirga namaa hin dhiibbiin mirga ofii kabachiisuu keessatti olaantummaa seeraa abbaa biyyummaa isaa mirkaneessuu keessatti uummanni Oromoo otoo hin qaana'in, otoo hin salphatiin attamitti deemuu danda'a. Attamitti gara karaa siyaasaatiinis, karaa dinagdeetiinis, karaa hawaasummaa isaatiinis attamitti mirgi Oromoo akka kabajamuu danda'a isa jedhu irratti hojjechuu kan dandeenyu uummata keenya wajjiniin hariiroo tolfannedha. Kan irratti dhaabonni kun afran yookiin immoo dhaabonni hedduun yookiin immoo OGF waliin hariiroo tolfannee akka hojjechaa jirruu fi gargaarsa nu godha akka jiru qofa akka danda'u miti. Uummata Oromoo wajjiniin connected ta'uu qabna. Dargaggoos wajjiniin, beekaa wajjiniin, wallaalaa wajjiniin connected ta'uu qabna. Kan irratti approachii addaadha barbaadna keessattuu miidiyaa, social media jabana kana akkaataan namni itti communicate godhu jijjiirameera waan ta'eef kana irratti beektota IT barbaadna. Miidiyaan gargaarsa akka nu godhu barbaadna, sagalee akka nu kennu barbaadna, attamitti hojjechuu dandeenya. Kana irratti isa jedhu sinuma wajjiniin hariiroo tolfannee hojjechuuf nus gurmoofne hojjechuuf kanadha kan jedhan ibsanii. Eegan kana jedhee booda waltajjii isaa siniifan kenna yeroo keessan fudhadhee daqiiqaa 5 fudhadhetti fakkaatan maaliif dhiima guddaa ammarraa eegaleetti fagaasiniin eebbisa duubar. That is it. Trevor, I said in Oromo language, it's about summarizing things. I didn't say much. I just emphasized the way we wanted to operate, the way our intention to open a channel, means of communication between our own people, the Oromos, and how we should work alongside the media and about creating a channel, direct communication to our people, and our intention, our plan to connect and recommit ourselves in terms of talking to international organizations such as the different institutions, international establishments around the UN and different countries where we are residing, especially those of us who are the refugees. So that's it, and I will open the platform for discussion and question and answer. That's it. Thanks.
Do you want the questions all to be by mouth, or should they be through the chat room, or what?
People can ask questions, and really appreciate it. Warri kaan harka baasuu dandeessu, warri harka baasuu dandeessanii we can stop sharing. Warri harka baastanii gaasuu dandeessanii. Daniel harka baaseera. That's who I can see. Warri harka baasuu hin dandeenye sagalee nu dhageessistan just make a voice and we'll deal with it. Daniel, go on.
Thank
Daniel,
you,
yes.
everyone. My question is, as you have already reported, there have been a continuous violation of human rights on the Oromos, and mass killing has become the culture of every Ethiopian government. We hear that yesterday the Ethiopian government military have 5 youths in one city, Nagamt. There are unabounding evidence that mass killings are being carried out. And this, in my opinion, amounts to kind of ethnic cleansing. And can we take this case to the International Court of Justice? Can we charge the Ethiopian government, specify, count, list a group in the Ethiopian government system that is consistently committing genocide on the Oromo people, and charge them on the global stage? Can we do that?
Thank you.
My own answer is that I do not know. I don't know what the criteria are for taking cases to the International Criminal Court. I know that people who have tortured other people can be taken from any country to the International Criminal Court on the basis of allegations of torture. Indeed, I believe Tashali and I were looking into that during the previous regime's hegemony. I don't know. Let us ask Garoma and Banti and Tashali if they know the answer to that question.
Yeah, I would like to add that in addition to the International Courts of Justice, there is a United Nations branch that's called International Courts of Justice.
ICC.
The sixth branch, the United Nations.
Okay, let's give the chance to Garoma and then short answer, please. Garoma, please. Garoma and Banti.
Garoma, unmute yourself.
Unmuted, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So Daniel, thank you for asking this question. Actually, the answer is yes. It is not such simple, but we can really put as a compliant procedure. There is a procedure called compliant to the treaty bodies, and they are hearing this. They are taking the complaint. We are complaining that the Ethiopian government just killed these people, innocent people without no harm. We have to prove that. And through these treaty bodies, I told you that treaty bodies are a committee who are working on 10 treaties. There are 10 treaties. Each treaty has got a committee. We can just file there and collect all informations and justify, and they can send to the International Court of Justice. This is at the United Nations. The second one about ISIS. ISIS, we can also really just file the case with ISIS, but we have to make sure that our document is full. That means we have to justify, we have to have lawyers at local level and justify that this case is going to pass, because with ISIS, 3 bodies can file a case. The first one is the organizations like NGO, like Human Rights League, anyone. And the second one is the government. Government is, that means the ISIS, they have got 122 government members. Member government. Ethiopia is not a member still now. Even though they are not a member, that doesn't mean that we cannot file a case. So the third one is United Nations Security Council. If the United Nations Security Council believes that, or just got enough document on killing, mass killings, they can file the case too. For example, take the government of Sudan. They filed on al-Bashir. So these are the three groups who can file with ISIS. But in the case of the International Court of Justice, we can do it through treaty bodies. But it really takes time to fulfill what they need document, that means. So this is the answer, I think.
Thank you, Garoma. I believe Bekari Bekari Roba had his hand up. Perhaps not. Banti, I'm sorry, I cut you off before you were going to say.
Let me add just a point. I'm not a lawyer, Botashale, and add some lawyers I see here, and they are good, I think. But what I want to mention, the practical thing, what Dr. Daniel asked. It is possible, but you have to hire a lawyer, and lawyers are very expensive. So the Oromo people, if they want to do that, they have to look for a good lawyer and pay, and then start and try. That's all what I want to say.
Thank you, Banti. Did Bekare return? Apparently not. Are there any other questions?
Jamal is asking question.
Aha, Jamal, sorry.
Yeah, hello. How are you doing today? Thank you for the wonderful presentations. My question is partly that of Daniel's, but I just want to know your experiences with the legal advocacy. So far, I think most of you were producing reports telling the stories how human rights violations are immense in Ethiopia under all Ethiopian regimes. But I didn't see any experience of yours or also your reports regarding legal advocacy, how you tried to advocate legally, whether it is locally in Ethiopia or in African context or globally. So I just want to ask, have you ever tried that? And I hear also sometimes if you don't exhaust the regional or local legal instruments, the international, any legal activities at the international level are not that much welcome. So if Ethiopian government and also the regional governments are not respecting the rule of law, what is the meaning of pushing someone to use the legal instruments locally or regionally? So why is the answer always, oh, you have to use the local instruments before you go to the international one? Isn't it meaningless? All right, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamal. That is taken into account when complaints are made to the convention bodies at the UN, the working groups on disappearances and extrajudicial killings, this sort of thing. The need to, you just have to say that there's no point going to the local people because they're the ones who are actually doing the abuses. That's and once that is understood, that is fine. In terms of the effect of these, there is currently legal activity going on in Finfinne, and the best person to talk about this is Tashale, I believe. Would you mind commenting on this, Tashale?
I'm not going to talk much about what's going on in Ethiopia for the safety of many reasons, the people involved in this. But But I'm not implying that we have got a very secret relationship with lawyers who are helping people on the ground over there. So they are working on their initiative, and based on they're discharging their responsibility based on the Ethiopian law. And yet we expect them to deliver the best service for the political prisoners and the people who are subject to different atrocities there. That is all I want to say, and I hope Jamal and the rest of people who are on this platform might understand me why I am a bit, I look like a bit evasive.
No, you're right to be cautious under the current circumstances, I think, Tashali. Perhaps I shouldn't put you in that position, sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, regarding this, the point you mentioned, the both of you mentioned, and especially Jamal emphasized, why do we try to resort or go, pretend that justice could be done and pretend that a local remedy is available, while it is not, while we know pretty well that it is not. It is really sensible when you look what is happening on the ground. Judges are arrested. I received a report 2 days ago. It was around midnight, and I was watching, and somebody was calling me on the social media, and it's a judge who I know. He was telling me that about 2 judges were arrested in one zone. One was beaten up bitterly. The 2 judges were arrested for 3 days, beaten up, tortured, and released. And the other was beaten up, all by the specially trained police officers. This is a bit in a remote area, and it is all over the place, in Bali, in Wolaga, in different places, and even in close to around Burayu, not Burayu, Sululta. People are being harassed every day, and we know that. Not only judges, lawyers meaning who are doing law, helping people because they are employed by, hired by the accused person. And according to Ethiopian law, if you can't hire your own lawyer in criminal trial, the government has the duty to hire one for you. That is a constitutional duty of the government, and that is a constitutional right of any accused person. That is as simple as that. That is what Garam has been talking about. There is no problem with law. The law provides all facilities. So there is different range of kinds of right, but there is nothing on the ground showing that the law works in Ethiopia now, especially today, because you are granted bail, and the security force won't let you go out. That is unprecedented in Ethiopia. Before, it was possible to get your freedom anyway, but after some struggle. Now it is not possible. The people who have been granted OLF, people who were accused of fictitious crimes, people like Colonel Gamachu. Their whereabouts is not known from a couple of days ago. They were granted bail. It was not, it didn't happen. They paid, they deposited the money needed for that. The court wouldn't let them go. So another application was lodged, and the judges, the lawyers were successful to get something. And yet the security forces, the government won't let them go. And now their whereabouts is not even known. That is what is happening in Ethiopia. What we learn from, what I'm getting from Ethiopia is the trial is taking place in prison. The judges are going to prison and presiding in the prison. So the judges themselves are a kind of in prison. They are trying cases in prison. It's not in a formal court. Ethiopia is in a kind of very deep crisis right now. So that is it. Regarding the ICC, International Criminal Court, it is possible. There is a possibility. It's not impossible, but the requirement is quite stringent. I used to say that it is very difficult to do that because the crimes that has to be committed, the standard that is expected of us, the victims, to demonstrate to the International Criminal Court is very high. The bar is very high. Now it seems that we can meet that threshold, but it is not an easy thing because to get there, there are different hurdles. If I explain that, it would be quite complicated to everybody. But the crimes, genocide, atrocity that we need to show for us to qualify, for our case to qualify for ICC, it is there. And still it is not a very small and simple thing. We have to think about it. There are different mechanisms beyond that. For example, the Human Rights Commission in Africa, the African Human Rights Commission, that is one possibility where we can do something. Is it efficient as the ICC or is it powerful as such? No, but the ICC to work, the international communities must be convinced. So this kind of thing goes hand in hand. We have to campaign for this. We have to influence international communities, different nations, the big bosses, the Security Council. If we do that, and if we get some sort of compassion from them towards our cause, if they are passionate and if they are convinced that we have got a case, they can intervene and they can do something about it. So it is
clearly a case
kind
that we
of working
want to
together.
take forward, Michele. This is clearly a case that we want to take forward. But there are several people with raised hands now, and I would like to give them a chance to raise their questions, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Go on, yes, good, great, yeah.
Okay, Doctor, yes, I want to add just a little bit on this question,
Can you
please.
be brief, please, Karoma, because there are 3 people waiting to ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you gave me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Doctor. Waan jechuu barbaadu jirtaa Jamal. Jamal gaaffii gaarii gaafatee maaliif jirta miti?
Yeah.
Akka dhageessu waan barbaaduuf. Keezii kana maaliif high level ittiin fudhannu maaliif jallaadhaa jalqabuu qaba kan jedhu an gaafatee legal advocacy deemaa jira inni jedhu dhugaadha deemaa hin jiru. Indirectidhaan deemaa jiru. Kana gochuu dandeenya garuu waan sadii nu gaafata. Tokkoffaan legal advocacy deemsisuu fi day to day warra legal treaty bodies wajjin hojjechuu qabna. Erga kana hojjennee booda yoggaa wannoo faayilii goo dookumentii faayilii goonu keezii faayilii goonu siistemiin isaanii nu dirqisiisa godaa jalqabuu qabna. Itoophiyaa keessa koortiin jira. Achi keessatti akka hin danda'amne yoo hin danda'amu ta'e we have to make sure that we have to supplement this with documents with really proof. Then lammaffaarratti regionally dhaquu qabna jechaadha. That is African Peoples and Human Rights Commission. Kunis siistemii keessa galuu qabaadha. Yoo achirraan dhaqnu taane gubbaarraa jalqabuu hin dandeenyudha. Kana gochuuf kan nu barbaachisu inni guddaan maalinni ani amma legal advisory kan ICC gaafadhe steepii kanaa jechaadha. Steepii sana keessa hin darbu taanaani fudhatama hin qabudha. Maaliif dookuma Itoophiyaa keessatti hin danda'amu jedhame yoo ragaallee arganne sun akka dookumentii tokkotti nu qabamaa jechaadha. Afrikaa regional levelitti dhaqnee waasaan jedhan fudhannee achi dhaquu qabna jechaadha. Kanaaf kan nu barbaachisu garuu kana hundaa fi riiserchii guddaan hojjetamuu qaba. Isa darbeef keezii dhiyeessuuf har'a kan jiru irratti hojjechuu qabna. Lammaffaa immoo legal advisory qabaachuu qabna. That is very expensive. Kana nu daangessa malee ni danda'ama karaa hundaa jechuu barbaadini. Kanaaf legal advocacy akka itti deemu qaba. Akkuma isinitti himetti Human Rights League siitii 15 qabaa jenneerra. 5 kan amma Jenevaatti dhimma itti baana ta'e day to day waan ta'aa jiru riipoortii dhufu bakka adda addaatti walitti qabanii akka legal konseptiin isaa akka sanatti akka luucaa hojjechuun ni danda'ama. Kanaaf it is simply expensive in malee hin danda'ama.
Okay, thank you very much, Garoma.
Welcome.
Moa,
Thank you.
now it's your turn. Moa Abagodu.
Thank you, Dr. Turan. My question is for you. So you started by saying that so we have to be careful not to weaponize human rights good case. So based on that, I want to ask you a simple question. Given your long time experience, do you think that the human rights situation for Oromos got worse under Abiy than the TPLF? If so, can you tell me a couple of things? This is what makes it difficult and so on. Thank you.
Goodness me. I once asked Martin Hill, when he was the Ethiopia desk officer for Amnesty International, whether he thought the TPLF regime was worse than Mengistu's. And he said, you can't make comparisons because each abusive regime is different and is abusive in different ways. And I think that is true. It could be that you do more damage in the long run with your educational policy, for example, than you do with extrajudicial killings. How can you equate the one abuse compared to another? However, having said that, there had been a definite decline in the worst abuses of human rights in Ethiopia. The numbers of people being tortured in detention, the proportion being tortured under the TPLF was going down in recent years. The number of extrajudicial killings was going down, except for the students. We lost at least 1,000 students during 2015 and 2016. And that's on top of the killings at Irecha that year. The current problems, as I said before, show worrying signs in two respects. The lack of discipline in the armed forces, the fact that they're shooting bystanders, including people with who are destitute, street children, people with mental disabilities, people just out shopping, this sort of random stuff. This one, poor woman, breastfeeding woman who was shot just as target practice in Wolaga. This sort of lack of discipline and the crude forms of torture that are being used and the disfigurement of bodies, these are new levels of atrocity that we haven't seen for years. And so, yes, there are worrying changes now compared to the previous regime, but I have no desire to whitewash the regime of the TPLF, that they were absolute experts at torture. Okay, we have, I believe there's 5 hands raised now. I did write down 2 people who asked earlier on, Abraham Abaye, and then after Abraham Abaye, there will be Abebe Chewaka.
Yes, thank you for organizing this meeting. And I have one question regarding all branches of these leaders, those who lead different branches. How close are you working with Oromo media as initial point to collect the atrocities in Oromia particularly? The reason I raise this one is I'm sure you guys have a branch or a means of collecting cases in Oromia or else, but the focus is Oromo media, they have their own channels to collect or to report what is going on. Is that, have you utilized it? Means as initial point for further investigation? Thank you.
I would like to refer this question to Garoma, and
Yes,
then
sir.
I perhaps will follow on with comments about how OSG gets its information.
Okay. Shall I continue that?
Yes, please, Garoma. Yeah.
Okay. Galatomi Abrahim Abaye. Gaaffiin isaa afaan Oromootti yoo jijjiire Oromoo miidiyaan Oromoo baay'eetu jiru isaan wajjiniin amma hojjechaa jirtu odeeffannoo argachuuf kan jedhudha. Natti fakkaata yoo rankaan ta'e. Deebiin isaa inni dhugaa dubbachuuf miidiyaa Oromoo isaa ta'u kamiyyuu jechaadha. Information argama taanaanii information ni fudhanna. Oromoo keessa immoo Oromoon independent media waan qaban natti fakkaatu biyya keessa baay'isaan inni xiqqoodha. Yeroo xiqqoo fi OMN tu achi seenee amma ONN hin jira. Isaanis immoo karaa riipoortii argatan illee baay'ee rakkisaadha isaa wajjiniini. Actually as a general just answer media irraa information fudhachuu ni dandeenya garuu isaan irratti hundoofnee wanti hojjetamu hin jiru maaliif kuni human rights dha. Human rights jechaani it's not like akka radio akka TV akka gaazexaa miti. Second information irraa yookiin immoo riipoortii nama biraarraa fuunee baasuun danda'amu. Yoo argannellee namoota keenyaan ergineetu proofii gochuu qabu jechaadha. Maaliif waa'ee seeraati kan hojjetamaa jiru waa'ee human rights irratti. So in any way information nu ga'u ni jira. Isaan deliberate illee yoo nu wajjiniin hin hojjetan ta'een arganna. Garuu han isaan riipoortii godhan irraa nuti namoota keenya jecha riipoorteroota naannoo sanaa yoo qabna ta'e yoo immoo qabnu ta'e bakka biraatii kaafne waan jedhame sun dhugaa akka ta'e adda baafachuu qabna jechaadha. We need only first hand information report gochuuf jechaadha. Kanaaf akka itti jirra jechaadha. Yeroo hunda human rights report inni godhu kan mataa isaa ta'uu qaba because we have to justify. Amma human rights report godhee yookaan isinitti facaasu United Nations itti facaasu I will be asked one justification in gaafatama jechaadha. I have to have a full hand of justification for what just I reported. Otherwise mootummaan wannoo qaba just backfire qaba jecha dhaaba kanaaf. So it is like that. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, the accuracy of the information is absolutely paramount. Banti, would you like to follow up with a comment?
Well, Aroma has said what need to be done, but that doesn't mean we don't accept it. We are very happy if media works with us, especially by documentation. For example, when Achalu was killed in, it is known, and on his funeral, about 5 people were killed, and there was a video from OMN that was taken live as people were being shot, and his uncle or somebody cousin. If we get such information, that videos are very helpful. I know that one of the medias have got it. Recently in Germany, there are a group of people who were accusing other body for killing Achalu, and I desperately needed that video, but I couldn't get it now. So please help us, Abraham Aboye. I know you are working in media. Let's work together, and we can. There is a way that we work together.
Thank you very much, Banti. Abebe Chewaka has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dr. Truman. I hope you remember we raised about the individual complaints in the OSA conference in Washington, D.C. some years back. I talked to you with Fayera, and we have been trying this case since 2012, as we are members of the Task International based in Washington, D.C., the Torture Abolition and Survivor Support Coalition. We tried through the official in the UN to submit our cases to the UN, but this official passed away in 2014, and we couldn't continue. The problem I see in the Oromo area is there is less action we don't see action that is taken concretely when we have a lot of proofs, cases, and the truths. For example, there are officials, the so-called former officials of the TPLF, EPRDF government, because that government is still there. These officials, whom personally I remember in my Malawi, are currently living in Europe. We did our best, but there is no action. No action is being taken from Oromo side. There is no concrete action that we can depend on. And I heard and I saw this on the media that there is a complaint filed with the ICC, International Criminal Court, by the Oromo community in the Netherlands some months ago. And I don't see a follow-up from, this is a community-based organization, and did the first action to submit to the International Criminal Court, but I don't see that similar action other than just listing down the hindrances and obstacles to submit such cases or files to the ICC or UN organs from Oromo human rights organizations. And I suggest if it is followed up by Oromo human rights organizations, such issues might be, experience, it might be, a good condition to continue in a well-organized way the case that was submitted to the International Criminal Court by the Oromo Committee of the Netherlands. The reason why I am just finger pointing to ourselves, to the Oromo Human Rights Organization, is that I remember actually when I was at Kaliti, I saw a person who was evicted from the US by Abashas. His name is, most of you remember, Kalbe Sanago. He was a former Derg official, but he was Oromo. They used a lot of informations, personal informations, and made him accountable, and then he was extradited from US and put in Kaliti. When we come to Oromo, we have a lot of very concrete and convincing evidences, personal and document evidences, but we don't see actions. That's why don't we, my question, why don't the Oromo Human Rights Organization follow up cases, any Oromo human rights cases, and just take actions on a timely manner when we have a lot of evidences and documents that help them to do that?
You're absolutely right, Abebe. We should do more. We've all done a fair bit over the years, the few of us that are gathered here. But yes, we should do more and we should organize better. Your point is very well taken about the better use of these international bodies. So thank you very much for that. And that will give us more impetus to do that sort of thing. Now, Dabesa, you wanted to make a comment about the media while that was still a hot topic. Is that true?
Yes, Doctor, thank you very much. Afaan Oromoonin gabaabsee himaa sababan waan kana hubadheefi jechuudha. Tokko akka nama miidiyaatti akkitti nuti waan namoonni na ajjeefaman nuti gabaasnuu fi akkitti warri human rights irratti hojjetan obbo Dastaa yaa beesaa miut godhadhaa kan keessan akka walii yannin godha. Okay. Akkitti isaan hojjetantu adda adda. Amma parpaziin gruupii kana dhaabneef iyyuu tokko akkamitti waan kana dura ittiin fayyadamne gara fuulduraatti fayyadamne hojii hojjennu haala efficient ta'een, effective ta'een bu'aa akka argamsiisutti itti deemna kan jedhuudhaan. Jaarmiyooti kun mataa isaaniitiin hir'ina mataa isaanii qabu, jabina mataa isaanii qabu. Miidiyaan keenya iyyuu mataa isaatiin waa'ee mirga namoomaa akka ittiin ni hubatu iyyuu rakkoo mataa isaa ijaa qabu akka itti gabaasanis. Kanaaf iddoo hundumaa iskiilii rakkootu jira. Iskiilii waan tokko na hojjennu haasa'uu fi waan sana hojiirra oolchuun gaaffii guddaa qaba. Kanaaf iskiilii sana akkaataa itti argannee waan nu barbaachisuun of ijaarree waan goolii rukuchuu dandeenyu sana akkaataa itti rukunnu irratti akka hojjennuu fi pilaatfoormiin amma kaa'aa jirru jechuudha. Parpazii waan kana keenyeef humna adda addaati iddoo garaagaraa jira. Humni adda addaa kun yoo walitti dhufnee waggaa keessatti waan mul'atu tokko, waan saba keenyaaf fakkeenya ta'u tokko yoo produce goone, yoo baafne gamanaa gamas dhaabbannee waan adda addaa xuxunnee iyyuurra waan madeessee hojjetu tokko, fakkeenya ta'u tokko yoo lafa keenye inni sun baay'isaa deema kan jedhurraa ka'eetu. Kanaaf amma fakkeenya tokko isinitti himaa. Obbo Gaarumaan warra nu keessa jiran keessaa Dr. Trevor yeroo dheeraadhaaf gabaasaa warra turee fi fakkeenya keenya hunda kan ta'edha. Waan tokko isinitti himuuf Dr. Trevor ani bara 1996 akka lakkoofsa Awurooppaatti yeroon TV keessa hojjedhu jalqabeen oduu biyya keessaa ergaafii ture. Otoon bara sana inni sagalee haarawaa irratti waan inni jedhu sana baasuu baadhee waan inni hojjedhu kun na keessatti hin mul'atu ture. Waggaa dheeraa natti fudhate ilaala. Waggaa bara 1996 amma ammaatti. Biyya Itoophiyaa keessatti guyyaa guyyaadhaan yeroo deemnu odeeffannoo gahaa qabnaa, namoonni akkamitti miidhaman hin beennaa. Garuu waan sana oduu miidiyaaf dabarsuudhaaf warra human rights'dhaaf kaa'uu hubannoo ittiin qabnu yeroo sanatti. Ofii kootii iyyuu hidhamnee Abbabaadhaan amma mana hidhaattuu wal beekna amma innaan naasa'u natti dhaga'ama amma hanga gariisa. Miidhaa meeqa arginee waan sana iyyuu gadi baafnee baasuudhaaf humni keenya xiqqaadha jechuudha. Waan amma jaarmiyaalee xixiqqaa kana dhaabneef gaaffii sana cufuuf. Pilaatfoormiin amma dhaabne kun dabalatee Oromiyaa Global Forum kan jaarmiyooleen Oromoo gara 45 keessa jiran dabalannee amma fuuldurri itti deemaa jirru eeriyaa ekspertii itti taane irratti hojii mul'ataa fi jabaa ta'e hojjennee akka rakkoo uummata keenyaa hiiknu abdii uummata keenyaa ol kaafnudha. Warri miidiyaa waan hubachuu qabdan akkuma nama isinii kaase Dr. Trevor Taansee Human Rights League of Horn of Africa gabaasa inni baasu namoonni meeqa akka jala deemanii dubbisan baay'ee shakkiin qaba. Maaliif miidiyaan keenya irra jireessa politikaa saatureetididha. Waan politikaa kana malee damee adda addaa tuulii garaagaraa rakkinoota saba keenyaa kan adda baafnee hojjechuu irratti hir'ina qabu. Gaarumaan namni tokko fakkeenyaaf hin hidhame yoo jedhe yoo midhame eessatti hidhame maaliif hidhame waan kana jala bu'ee istoorii nama sanaa biildaappi godha. Miidiyaan immoo jeneraaliidha. Namoota amma kana ajjeefaman akkas ta'anii maal ta'anidha. Kanaaf warri miidiyaan keenyas konseptii human rights kana yeroo gabaasnu baraa seera addunyaa baraa jara kanarraa odeeffannoo argachaa yoo deemani booda walitti hidhachuu dandeenya jechuudha. Waan isaan gabaasan kana akka initial springboarditti fudhannee explore goonee keezii nama tokko develop goonee agarsiisuuf nu gargaara jechuudha. Kanaaf kan barbaadameef waa'ee kanaa fi hir'inooti keenya iskiiliis haa ta'u, knowledgeis haa ta'u, awarenessii waa'ee kanarratti qabnu baay'ee xiqqaadha akka sabaatti. Kana beenne barnootaan of guddisaa iskiilii waan tokko apply itti godhan kana develop godhachaa deemuutu nurra jira. Waan kunis kan dhufeef sababa kanaafi inni darbe rakkina baay'ee qaba. Isa gara fuulduraatti xiyyeeffachuuf barbaada. Sababuma kanaan Dr. Trevorinis Dr. Bantiinis warra nu jala deemanii xalaan nu gargaaraa baanii asiin nu ga'anii hedduu galateeffachuun barbaada. Gaarumaallee dabalatee hedduu fayyaa ta'an jedha. I just want to acknowledge your long-term work, Dr. Trevor, and I know you from 1996 when I was working in Ethiopian television, and I have no clue about human rights. I just only send you a letter to your Sagale in the receiving Sagale Harawa. And that was the time where I was interested in the starting the point in a long time to internalize and to learn how to do with the human rights things. So I mentioned is lack of skills, lack of knowledge, and financial support, and the organizational support. Something or many things which hindered has to do more. And the reason why we established this platform is to improve the way we were doing and to maximize our people's hope in the area and minimize the abuses. So this is what I mentioned.
Thank you very much, Davasa. Now, there were two people who've had their hands up for a long time. I'm very sorry. Dessa Yebasa and somebody whose screen says HP. Now, first of all, can we have Dessa Yebasa? Dessa.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Turman. My question is based on the topics that Bogaruma raised, rules and laws and human rights, but anybody can answer the question. My question is, there is a gross human rights violation starting from Mengistu, TPLF, and this time in Abiy's regime. And this gross human rights violation was reported by every human rights organization, community, and governmental reported to whom it concerned from long time. But when we see this rule, law, and regulation and human rights in Ethiopia, the rules and the laws are broken every time. The government is killing, arresting, and doing whatever he wants. If we see this time, as we all are aware, it is yesterday they killed 5 young people in Nakamte. The Abiy government killed, and everybody's opposition group leaders are in prison. And the report was already reported by human rights, by all of you, and by governmental, everybody, but there is no solution tonight. Is it not a time to think to bring those criminals to the International Criminal Court, even if the price is too high, to hire a lawyer or whatever? Because I said this, you know, every time something happened in Ethiopia, a human rights organization, community organization reporting, but the outcome is really non-existent. But the rule and the regulation is not exist in that country, and they are continuing this gross human violation. And what is the plan for the future if the report didn't bring any solution? This is my question.
Who is sharing his desktop, please?
I think it is maybe just a minute.
What is that? Something happened. I don't know.
It is capsize.
Yeah, your point, Desta, is what is the point of making these reports if it doesn't make any difference to the situation on the ground? Is that correct?
Yes, right.
So why have we failed to reach solutions to the problems? Is that your question?
No, my question is, there is a gross human rights violation in Ethiopia every time.
Yes, we know.
We see from Mengistu to Abiy Ahmed. And as a human rights, your organization, Dr. Benchi's organization, every advocacy group and the community are reporting this gross human violation for the decade. But there is no solution. If you see in other countries, as an example, in Kenya, the criminals came to the International Criminal Court. What is our problem? I know somebody asked this question, but the answer is, it is very expensive to pay for the lawyer, or the process is too long.
It's not just a question of expense.
My question, the question is now, every human right was reported this gross human right violation, but there is no solution as of today. But what is the plan for the future? Instead of, in addition to reporting all this gross human violation, to bring those criminals to the International Criminal Court or find some solution.
We share your frustration, and I do take on board the emphasis that a lot of people made on using international bodies, and we will forward that with our combined expertise and effort. But remember, we're only a small bunch of people. You know, we're I'm not more powerful than you, really. It's just that, well, there are limits. Anyhow, the next question.
Doctor, just can I say some just really share ideas about this? What is just asking?
Well, it depends how long people want to carry on for.
Okay. So you gave me or not?
Make it short.
Okay, just I'm going to make sure. Barabasan kan gaafate dargira kaasee hamma ammaatti rakkinni jira, namoonni du'aa jiru, namoonni hatamaa jiru yookiin ofamaa jiru. Maaliifi kuni xumuran godhanne yookiin immoo bakka dhimma isaa ilaallatutti maaf hin geenyedha. Ammas irra deebi'amee kan ilaalamuu qabu. Kana hojjechuuni kana gochuun keezii Oromiyaa irratti Oromoo keessatti hojjetamaa jiru irratti jechaadha. Baay'ee salphaadha. Kan nu daangesse ammas taanaani kan nu daangesse jechaadha. Remember, yeroo baay'ee irra deddeebinee haasaa jirra. Abbabeen gaaffii kee kana keessii deebi'ee jennee amana. Namni Human Rights League shantu jira ammas kan Oromoo jechaadha. Dhaabbolee kanaaf shanan kana keessaa jecha nam tokkollee kan dhuunfatee hojii kanarratti hojjetaa jiru hin jiru. Maaliifi paartaayimii hojjenna hundi keenya jecha yoo nam tokko dhuunfatee hojjetaa ta'e jecha dhaaba kanaaf miinda'ee baajeta baay'ee horachiisee jechaadha. Kana gochuun baay'ee salphaadha. Maaliifi kan nu barbaachisu salphaadha kana jedhee yeroo qaba. Researchiin hojjetamuu qaba. Researchiin sun immoo according to the UN system isa mansiisirratti jechaadha sana faana bu'ee keezii isaa dhiyeeffachuun ni danda'ama. Kan nuti dhabne yeroo fi jechaan nama hojjetu jecha guutummaatti hojjetuu fi horii dhabne horiitu dhibnaa malee kun hojjetamuu ni danda'ama. Kanaaf hamma kan hin dandeenyetti itti fufaa jecha. Thank you.
Can I say something, Dr. Truman? I cannot raise my hand, so can you give me a chance to say a couple of words after Daniel Dibaba?
Of course. Well, the two other people who've had their hands raised for a little while, HP and Jalata Saba, and then Daniel Dibaba again. And do you want to speak after them, Zelalem? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Right. I think we better tie it up after that. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, then, HP.
Yes, HB is Marartu Dafa. My name is Marartu Dafa.
Hello, Marartu. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Travers. I'm so happy to see all of you in here for those who are concerned for human rights violation, particularly in Oromia. But my question is related to Bodastas Yabaso's question. Are you really, really believing deep inside in your heart human rights was violated by this government when you go to human rights, what do you call it, in United Nations? Because the reason I'm saying is, like Desta Yabasa said, everybody knows since Mengistu, since Haile Selassie, in fact, this government is a brutal government. It is imperial government. It is a colonial government. So they have been killing and murdering, and heinous crimes have been done to Oromo people. But they are, everybody is complaining. I remember my childhood. I've been, what do you call it, activist and doing human rights all over United States and giving it to United Nations. But isn't that better for us to have, instead of like taking a route of human rights, than fundamental rights? Because the reason I'm saying that, you can answer this very, very diligently question, because human rights is decided by nations and so many nations for nationalities or ethnic groups. For example, I'll give you one example in United Nations. In Security Council, Saudi Arabia used to be the head of human rights in Security Council. the biggest violators of human rights in the world. So when it comes to our problem, some nations, they don't care about Oromia. They don't even know about Oromia. As you know, the whole world is combined and deciding how to, what do you call it, to get every resources from minorities or the victims. So deep inside, again, I'm going to my question. It can be answered by one of you. Deep inside, are you really believe human rights, our human rights that have been, Oromos have been killed, murdered, the human rights is so many things, will be solved by United Nations, the nations who is deciding our destiny, or if we are free, because the fundamental right is decided by constitution of any country, if we are self-determination and everything is decided by fundamental rights. So can we take this route, or really we just have to pursue? Because like the Basa said, nobody was being arrested or charged with a crime, those leaders before Abiy Ahmed. So what do you think? What do you suggest, Dr. Travers, or somebody who is in charge to answer this question? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your question. And yes, we all share your frustration. It seems as though we've been bashing our head against a brick wall for the last 30 years without any progress at all. At one level, when I started an interest in the struggle, there was no place called Oromia. You could be arrested on the street for speaking Afan Oromo. Your children were not taught in Afan Oromo. Afan Oromo was not even written down, apart from with a few bits of literature organized by the IORA and the OLF. And so we cannot say that there has been no progress. And in fact, one of my heroes, Negasa Kumsa, once told me that the Oromo movement is like a huge cooking pot. It takes a long, long time to warm up. But now it's boiling and there will be no stopping it. And that's what he said, and I really believe that. It's just a question of limiting the damage between now and when the Oromo do have freedom. So don't give up. We're not failing, we are succeeding. It's never fast enough, but we are succeeding. I'm sorry to cut people a bit short, but we ought to continue. Now it's Jalata Saba's turn.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much, all, about the discussing about the Oromo issue, this wonderful discussion. My question is for Dr. Galato or Dr. Truman. The Human Rights Organization and the Amnesty International, just their job to report the human rights violation in Ethiopia, or I never seen they bring it to international justice, anyone, this all past years. So the Human Rights Organization, you guys working on it to bring this criminal government to bring the justice. My second question, how the world community, they seen that right now is no government, no legal government in Ethiopia. So with the European Union and the United States, the all worldwide government, how they follow what's going on in Ethiopia, no legal government elected by the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jalata. Can you turn your, can you mute yourself again? Because I'm coming through your speaker over mine.
I'm sorry?
Jalata, can you mute? I'm going to mute you. There we go. That's it. My speaker, my voice was coming out twice, once through my microphone and then again through your speaker. I'm sorry, Jalata, so I've muted you. I'm sorry you've asked me again. I feel as though I've spoken too much already. You ask again why we're not succeeding, and in particular why we haven't applied enough leverage to Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. in terms of their publications.
Doctor, I can say something. You gave me?
Go on.
Jalata says that why they are not really taking this document to the international level, especially to the court. That is a good question. And I asked them, for example, in, I don't know, 2015, I think, Amnesty published or released a big document called Because I Am an Oromo. So at that time, there was a woman who was just working on this project, and I talked to her. This document is a big document with really enough evidence to take to the court, to anywhere, to justify what is happening in Ethiopia, Oromia especially. So she answered to me, Garoma, I'm very sorry. I'm doing my job, because she's assigned to report on Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the others. So now this year, my turn is just to report on Ethiopia, especially what is happening in Oromia. It is just to take this case to court. It is not my responsibility, even it is not Amnesty International's responsibility. We already expose what Ethiopia is doing, what is happening on against Oromo people. So you have a document now. This document should be taken to the international level by you guys, by Oromos, by Human Rights League of the Horn of Africa, for example, working for Oromo especially. So otherwise, just nobody should expect from any organization, international organization, that they are going to take to the court, because it is very expensive, it is very long process. So it is our duty, that means Oromo's duty, the responsibility to take this one to the court. So this is the answer for why they didn't take, because we should. They are saying that even proving or just collecting an evidence of atrocity in one country is enough for them. That's it. Is the answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Garoma. You've answered that more succinctly than I could have done. And in terms of whether the EU and the USA care about the lack of legal government, the short answer is no. They want stability, and they want tough guys that they can deal with. So they won't be listening to us necessarily. Now we have two more questions. One from Daniel Dibaba. Thank you for being so patient again, Daniel. And then another from Ayantu. So shall we hear Daniel's question then, please?
And then Bozalalam.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yes. Oh, I do apologize. I'm hopeless at this job.
That's okay. That's okay.
Do you want to go very last, Zalalam, or?
No, it doesn't matter. Any time.
Okay. I'm going to put you before Ayantu.
Thank you.
First of all, we'll have Daniel, and then it's Zalalam, and then it's Ayantu. I do apologize for that. Daniel?
Thank you very much. And right now, I don't have a question, but I have opinion. The Oromo human rights organizations have really done remarkable jobs over the years. And as Oromos, we owe you. My observation is that most Oromos do not know your work. The last time I remember, Bugarama started fundraising, and very few people contributed. And I was surprised, but I couldn't do anything much myself. But what I would like to say is, we have mentioned that financial incapacity or low financial resource has been mentioned as one of the hurdles. I think as a group, when you come together, probably try to use the Oromo mass medias based abroad and try to fundraise as one team. And if you do that, probably people can hear what you work and why we need finances, and we can get financial resource for hiring lawyers and sending them to different target like the United Nations, EU, International Criminal Court, and the likes. And we can do this. We can do this. It has been done in the past. For example, in Myanmar, when the Rohingya people were massacred, a Gambian, I think a Gambian foreign affairs person who was a lawyer took Aung San Suu Kyi to International Criminal Court. A Libyan leader in the past was also taken to the International Criminal Court. When it comes to the Oromo, it's just, we have really a lot of resources that we are not using among ourselves. We can fundraise and support the Oromia Human Rights Group. You can also apply for grant funding for like finances and support your work. A lot can be done, and we don't have to say we don't have enough capacity to take the criminals to international courts of justice and the likes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. This is a big message that we've taken from the whole of this afternoon. And thank you very much for emphasizing that. That's really good. And Zelalem, at last, thank you for your patience.
All right, thank you, Dr. Truman. I will say a couple of words in Afan Oromo first, and then say the same thing in English later. To anillee sagalee koo dabaluun barbaada sagalee Daani'elitti isin galateeffachuun barbaada jiruu ammaatti hojjettanii fi fayyaataa ulfaadhaa. Tokkoffaa isaaf galatti isinii ta'a. Lammaffaa konferansii kana yeroo akkasii kanatti yeroo barbaachisaa ta'e kritikaalii kanatti qopheessuu keessaniifis fayyaa ta'a. Sadaffaa walitti dhuftanii dhaabonni waan tokko hojjettanii waloodhaa waa hojjechuuf walitti dhuftanii tokko taatanii as ba'uu keessanii fi warra kaaniif illee fakkeenya guddaa taatu baay'ee fayyaa ta'an isiniin jedhan sadura. Itti aansee akkuma amma dubbatamaa ture jiruun hojjetamuu qabu baay'eedha. Namoota hojjetantu baay'eetti noo. Dhugaadhaa horiin isin jiru namis immoo baay'ee hin ta'ini beekumsis barbaachisus jechuun ekspertiiziin barbaachisus hin hir'ata. Kanaaf akkuma beektanii biizinasoonni baay'een daldalas haa ta'u warri mootummaas haa ta'u warri jiru adda addaa tajaajila adda addaa kennanii teknoolojii kana baay'ee leverage godhu teknoolojiitti dhimma ba'u. Amma seera wannoo kana keessatti waa'ee mirga dhala namaa kana keessatti yemmuu dhaga'u waan hojjechuuf deemtanii dhugaadha istiraatiijik pilaanii keessan illee dhageenya akkamittiin akka teknooloojiitti dhimma ba'uuf deemtanii utuu itti yaaddanii gaariidha. Maaliif gaariidha? Yoo teknooloojiitti dhimma baatanii piroosesii keessanis striimlaayinii gochuu dandeessu. Warra deetaa isinii funaananis baay'isuu dandeessu fakkeenyaaf yoo namoonni smaartfoon irratti ergaa isinii erguu danda'u ta'e namni gimbii jiru namni haramaayaa jiru dhaamsa isinii dhaamuu yoo danda'a yoo ta'e fakkeenya teknooloojii baay'eetu jira waan akkasii. Teknooloojii kana walitti qabanii immoo iddoo tokko central repository tokko kaa'anii warri researchersiin achitti yoo onlaayinii argachuu danda'anii warri miidiyaa argachuu danda'anii iddoo tokkotti immoo akkasii walitti qaban immoo analaayizii gochuudhaafis analaayizii godhanii isa keessaa ragaa walitti funaananii keezii biildii godhanis over time kompiitaratu irra dafee hojjetaa kompiitaratu irra organaayizii godhaa teknooloojiitu jira kana hundumaa fi egaa jiruu human rights illee beeku garuu waan akkasii kanasitu yaaddanii gaariidha isiniin jechuufan jedhee dhugaadha harkumaan funaananii waraqaarra kaanii yeroo yerootti riippoortii gabaasuun gaariidha hojjetamuu qaba innis garuu akkamittiin nu gargaaruu danda'a laata teknooloojiin rakkoo namaa qabnu kana rakkoo qabeenyaa qabnu kana rakkoo dafnee waa gochuu dadhabuu kana akkamittiin nu gargaaruu danda'a laata jettanii jira ta'a waan baay'eetu jira amshuu isallee immoo akka yemmuu pilaanii gootan isa keessaa tokko yoo godhattanii akkuma biizinasii warra kaanii hin gargaaraa jedhee yaada. Kanuma yaada isinii kennuuf jedhe So I will say the same thing in English. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for what you have been doing to advocate for Oromo human rights. And secondly, I wanted to thank you for convening this conference at this very critical and important time in the Oromo struggle. And thirdly, I wanted to say thank you again for coming together as different organizations, I think 4 or 5 organizations, and decide to collaborate and work together as opposed to doing the same thing in 3 different organizations, having 3 different organizations, 3 different processes, 3 different plans. That's really, it's a waste of resources when we have lots of organizations doing the same thing. I'm not against competition. Competition is very healthy, but I think a balance must be struck. We must strike a balance between competition and waste of our resources too. But I think others will learn from you and come together soon. And I wanted to thank you about that. The other point I wanted to make is that I believe there are too few of you doing lots of work, and there is a lot to do, but there are too few of you doing the work. And other businesses, governments and nonprofit and all kinds of businesses leverage technology in order to streamline their processes, in order to save costs, in order to have technology do the things that you would need human resources to do. And my question was, if you were to go out and look for technologies that can help you in your workflow and your process, you would be able to get the more data collectors from as far away as Gimbi and Arjo and all kinds of Oromia places. You would have, you would be able to provide that information to the media, to researchers, without having to intervene manually, without having to collect manually, sending each other Excel workbooks or PDF files. You would just save it on a central repository, and the media can pick it up from there. Researchers can pick that information from your online store. Also, it would be much easier to analyze the data, to look for patterns, trends, and gain some kind of actionable intelligence out of this data. As you collect data using technology and store and analyze using technology, you can start building cases against perpetrators. I think these days what's being collected is mostly about victims, but I think in the future, I'm sure you're going to collect information about perpetrators as well. And then events that have taken place where people have been victimized by these perpetrators. And then you would collect that information, that kind of information, you store it over time, it becomes evidence. And that's how you build your case. If you want to take anybody to any court, and I don't know anything about international courts, but I don't even know about the local courts much. But my point is, if you need evidence to take people to court, you need to collect the data, you need to analyze it. And there are technologies that can do that, those things. So my suggestion is, as you plan ahead, make technology part of the plan too. Ask yourselves, how can we use technology, to lighten our burden, to help us do what we're doing today much better with less cost and less, very streamlined processes. It was a suggestion, not a question, but I want to thank you again for the good work that you've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zelalem, and that will be taken on board. That is a very important point about the better use, more efficient use of technology by us. Ayantu, you've been very patient. You're the remaining questioner. Ayantu A, are you ready with your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. Actually, the speaker before me touched upon some of what I was going to say, so I will not repeat them. But I just wanted first to thank Obo Garoma, Obo Trevor Truman, and others who have, with very little resources, been gathering records and raising awareness, but most importantly, keeping these records. I think that part of this conversation has to involve how do we archive this information? How do we put it in an archival repository that can be accessible to advocates, possibly to journalists and others who are trying to document current violence. As many speakers before me noted, part of the challenge for how the Oromo story is told is it's often a journalist will come in and will report killings without necessarily connecting it to this broader pattern. But I think the most important part of the work is making those connections. And I think that the work you're doing and you've been doing for over 30 years is so critical, and preserving that and building on it is very important. I'm a student of archival studies. I'm really interested in how I can be involved with others that I work with to take this work that you've done and to make sure that it continues and that it has impact. I think a lot of people on this call are wondering, how do we have an impact? How do we have an impact? The UN and other organizations are one path. I think the community itself can also have an impact by being very effective and very organized with its own records and with its own memories and stories. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayantu. We will take that on board. Thank you very much. Now, I think it's about time for me to draw things to a close. I meant to do a summing up at this stage. I don't want to repeat everything that people have said, obviously, but the big message that we will take away from today is to get bigger and more efficient, but to make more legal efforts at international bodies, UN bodies, and the International Criminal Court using technology to gain more information and using money and legal expertise to actually prosecute some of these people in Europe. And archive website, yes, Andrew, this is very much on our minds at the moment, and it's one thing that all our groups are concentrating on getting going within the next few weeks. But the people from the UK, tomorrow's meeting begins at 2 p.m. in the afternoon because tonight our clocks fall back by 1 hour. For everybody else in the world, the meeting tomorrow will begin at 3 o'clock. I will begin at the same time as it did today. And as you know, tomorrow there will be fireworks because, I mean, not literal fireworks, but there has been a lot of controversy about the invitation of William Davison to the panel discussion tomorrow. Now, I would like to emphasize here and now, we must be polite to this man, but we must argue with him from a position of strength and confidence, and no exaggerations and no anger. And we will have a civilized conversation with him, I hope. Okay, very good. I look very much forward to meeting you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Trevor, for your nice summary. Galatoma hundi keessan bora akka namne wala garraga.
Atau galatoma.
Thank you very
Jara hundi keessan Daniel galatomi. Professor Mohammed, thank you so much for just really attending.
Thank
Again,
you.
we are going to have tomorrow too.
Okay, at the Ayan to please check your chat.
Jamal galatomi.
In contact with Cindy Galatomi hundi keessan.
Thank you, Jamal.
Dula nole kabba abban olinga budget Oromon.
Bozalaalem galatome Bozalaalem gorsa kee fi huwadhe rawaat jettu.
I found
sagantaa dhufuttu wal agarra.
Bozalaalaan teknooloojii kana iimeeliidhaan otoo hinti laattee fi gaarii.
Like today. It's like
today.
Jabaadha obbo Gaaruma baay'ee namatti tola. Baay'ee isamma dubbatte horiin hin ba'amma wayi Oromiyaan dhabamuudha wayi jiraachuudha horii baasuma qabna please irratti hojjedha baay'ee nama gammachiisa.
Galatoom dassa.
Horii nurratti ramadaa horii.
Isaan rakkinni keenya sanaan.
40 miseensa 45 qabna 45 kanarratti isin kaalkuleet gootanii yoo ramadanii namni hinuma baasa waa'ee lubbuutti.
Absolutely.
Dubbii lubbuutti.
Galatoomaa jabaadha.
Daani'el galatoomi Daani'el.
Jabaadha.
Qunnamaa jirtaa qunnamaa.
Jabaadha.
Fundraising jalqaba irratti kan kafalesidha yeroo darbee guddaa galatoomi.
Jabaadha.
Okay, tumsa akkam jirta dhageessaa tumsa? Okay, hin jiru jechaadha. Jira nagaan. Doctor, thank you so much for really a good closing remark.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much, everybody. I'm very impressed with the level of contributions, and for me, this has been a perfect beginning. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And
one last comment for Garuma. Whenever you do the fundraising, please make sure is the currency you are demanding it shouldn't be limited in one. Last time I saw is a Canadian thing. Maybe make sure is maybe dollar is preferred.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I think it's possible to give in dollars, and they are going to change into Canadian dollar. I think. Okay. I will make sure that doing that.
Can I say something? Is Ayantu still in the session?
Okay, go ahead.
Ayantu. Okay. Does anyone know Ayantu? Can you share her contact information, or just let her know that I would like to connect with her? If anyone knows Ayantu.
She's online. So she left already.
Twitter irra jirti, Facebook irra linkii sitti goona.
Okay, fayyaa
Yeah, she left already. Yeah, okay.
Hedduu fayyaa ta'e waan teknooloojii kaafte yeroo biraa waliin mari'anna nuti illee haasofne irraa keessumaa akkatti daataa eenyu kana walitti qabnu irratti haasofna gara fuulduraatti hedduu bareedaadha.
Fayyaa ta'e Ibbo Zalaalame kaa fayyaa ta'a Boris immoo akkuma kana nu tajaajila
Dr. Banji. Email ko argatta miti Dr.
Argadheera ammayyuu gaaffii
isa dhumaa kana isa amma irra deebi'een isin erge miti.
Na ergitee deebitee immoo isa sarara kaansilii godhinaan jette.
Okay, yaa.
Akka godhu fuulli dhuma isaa guutummaan isaa na erginni bosaaqataan na erge.